So you work really hard on a given sermon, you preach it, you feel great about it, you walk off the stage, and that's it. That's as far as that content goes. Your people may or may not remember it. You may or may not ever preach it again, and 7 days later, you get up and do it again. Is there a way to make sure that all that time and preparation and hours of energy spent preparing that sermon doesn't go to waste? I came across a really good article by Brandon Cox, a good friend of mine, pastor out at a church in Arkansas, very influential pastor and blogger. And he wrote this article, Never Waste a Good Sermon, 6 Ways to Repurpose Your Message Content. I want to go through the first 3 in this video, then I'll follow up with the second 3 in the next video because there's so much to unpack here. But if you've ever felt like you're putting a ton of work into a given sermon and walking away from it, and that's it, this video is for you. My name's Lane, this is Preaching Donkey. It's so awesome to have you joining me today. Welcome to my channel. If you like videos like this on preaching, how to become a better preacher, how to sharpen your skills and hone your preaching craft so that you can reach more people with what I believe is the most important message in the world, the gospel, then definitely hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell so you don't miss any videos that we're putting out there. And also, I want to offer something to you for totally free. You can go to preachingdonkey.com/21days, and there you can find my free 21-day guide to creating killer sermons. What this is a 3-week, 3-step process of preparing and delivering a really compelling, life-changing message. So whether you've been preaching for a long time or you're totally new to this, there's got to be something in there for you. So again, preachingdonkey.com/21days, my gift to you. Let's dive right into the first 3 ways that you'll never again let a sermon go to waste. All right, 6 ways to repurpose your message content. He says, I think we should never waste a good sermon. It's interesting that he says good sermon because sometimes we might preach a message and it doesn't really qualify to be shared beyond that. Now, I think this should be very rare. I once heard a pastor say, if it's worth preaching, it's worth podcasting. But I think that we need to really think about, man, was this sermon good enough to really spread far and wide and repurpose this content? And if it's not, then what can I do next time to make sure that my preaching is quality such that it's just worth sharing? Just something to think about. Do you ever get that post-sermon anticlimactic feeling that all of your research, all of your writing, all of your preparation just got burned up in a single half-hour shot? Okay, I talked about this at the beginning of the video, but it's such a common thing just to be done and think, that's it? Like, did they respond? Were they listening? Did all of my work matter? Okay. It would be far more ideal to leave church on Sunday believing there was still much to come of the results of your preaching, even after the lights are turned off and the doors are locked. No, we should never waste a good sermon. So here are at least 6 ways, we're going to talk about 3 in this video, to stretch the reach of a good sermon beyond the single weekend service. So the first way we do this is blog your points one at a time. So the first thing is, if you don't have a blog, if you don't have a website, some place that is your home base where you share content with the world beyond just your church's blog or beyond just your church's Facebook page or your Facebook page, it's worth having. And if you can get your name.com, like I have lanesebring.com, it doesn't have to be .com, that's fine. But if you have it, it's available, you might as well grab it because you might as well have some kind of home base, some kind of landing page that is your domain that you own, that follows you wherever you go, from this church to that church, from this career to that career. It's always with you and it's your space. So he says a full sermon transcript or manuscript is probably too long for a blog post, but 1 point with its explanation is just the right size. So if you're presenting 3 or 4 major truths this Sunday, write 3 or 4 corresponding blog posts during the following week. And if you're not sure about the difference between writing a good sermon point and writing an effective blog post, let me offer this advice. And Brandon is someone who writes quite a bit of blog content, so this is worth looking at. He says, write the titles as if it will stand all alone. A blog post title needs to hint at what's contained in the post. Okay, that's really good advice. So your blog post title doesn't need to give the whole story. It needs to be somewhat of a teaser. This is not to be confused with clickbait. Clickbait is when what you're promising in the title the article or the video doesn't deliver on the promise. That's clickbait. So you want to avoid that. But what you want is what I call click worthy. Like, people need to be interested enough because of the headline to click on it and read the post. So write the first line as if it determines whether the reader will go any further, because it does. Write the first paragraph to get people to take the next step, which isn't what you think it is. If you expect people to keep reading straight through your blog post, you're still thinking of it too much like a sermon. When reading web copy, most readers do something different. They scroll to the end. At the end, they'll figure out whether the post is worth reading or not. So let me before we get into his reasoning here, I think the other thing that people do, in addition to scrolling to the end, on their way to the end of the post, they're looking at the bullets and the highlights and just kind of, I mean, you do this, you get on your phone, you see an article, and you want to just get straight to what's the point, how is this going to deliver? And so even writing your post in such a way that people know kind of the big points along the way, then if they want to read deeper, they can. So he says they're going to scroll to the end, so close with a strong, confident call to action and sign off. Between the first paragraph and closing paragraph, present your content. Try to break up with subheadings, bullet points, and occasional illustrations. This is what I'm talking about. Make it scannable, okay? So your subheadings, your bullet points, illustrations, anything that breaks up the text. And the same thing you do in a sermon, where you're not just going to present content the whole time, you're going to break it up with stories and illustrations. It's what makes your sermon listenable, okay? You want to make your post readable and scannable so that the person can go through it. And then he says, share it bravely, the world needs it. So again, remember, the point is that you don't want to just preach a message on Sunday only to have it never used and never go beyond that through the week. And so the first thing you do is blog about it one point at a time. And if writing a post every day is intimidating, maybe it's one post a week. So you take one main point from your sermon and you post it on Monday, and that's it. Okay? Just getting that thought out there. And so every Monday, people can expect kind of a follow-up blog post from your message. That could be really helpful. And then you could share it with your church. And it just gets them thinking about the sermon beyond Sunday. Number 2, use brief quotes and verses as social media messages. Now, we see this a lot from really large church pastors, but it doesn't have to just be them. You can do this too, and especially if you have someone on your team or a key volunteer that really knows how to do this well to make these posts and quotes, you can kind of champion them with this and give them your vision for what it could look like, and they can take it from there. But he says, scan your sermon notes and separate out 5 or 6 sentences that are strong on their own, share them as single sentence status posts, and then sometimes turn them into an image with a tool like Canva. By the way, I love Canva. I can do a whole tutorial on how to use Canva for this kind of thing. Canva is awesome. I've designed all my book covers on Canva. Any kind of artwork I need to do, I use Canva. It's a free tool, canva.com. You should definitely check it out. It's popular to brand them with your church's logo and make them look professionally designed, but I still think there's great strength in just shooting from the hip and dropping truth in your social networks without it being polished. One of the things that we've learned during this kind of season we've been in doing virtual church, where lots of broadcast TV shows are done from home, it's just so different than anything else that has happened, is that polished and put together and super polished, high production value content has been replaced with what people have been able to do. I mean, even like Jimmy Fallon's show is done from his house, and the production quality isn't necessarily great, but people love it. And so when you're posting on social media, the key is the content. Do you have something from your message? Maybe it's your bottom line. Maybe it's a really, really well thought out sentence that really drives home a point that you can share. So it doesn't have to look polished and perfect. The key is the content. So what I would say is the thing that I'll add to this, and I'm sure Brandon would agree, when you are posting content from your message, one of the things that I see quite a bit is when people will post one sentence that they understand because they preached the message, And maybe their people in their church understand because they were there, but to the outside viewer, it's completely lost on us. Okay, it's out of context. We weren't there. We don't understand what it is. It's a little bit esoteric, and so it doesn't really make sense. So make sure that if you're pulling something from your message and posting it on social, you don't need to explain it, but it needs to explain itself. It needs to be something that you can understand when you look at it and go, ah, yes, I get that. I understand what that means. It's simple enough where I didn't have to be there. I just understand it. So just make sure that you're not just pulling something out that you had to be there to understand, because that's just insider language. And if it's targeted at your church and they were all there, that's maybe one thing. I still don't think it's best. But if it's put on your social media, you just want to make sure everybody understands it. And then number 3 is use the video. So he says, when I was in college, I had to preach a sermon on camera. Then I had to watch it and sit down with my preaching professor so he could critique it with me. This was extremely helpful and excruciatingly painful. It is still painful to see myself on video. That's human nature, but it's worth it. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth 1,000 pictures, and video is growing in popularity at a rapid rate with the advancement of mobile web platforms. So share your sermon video as a whole and in pieces by using smaller clips as brief posts. If you're not doing this yet, definitely capture the whole sermon on video and share it on your social media. Share it to your church's social media platforms. Share it on your website. Just share it broadly and encourage your church to share it. But the other thing that I think a lot of pastors are starting to get into, and it's really, really good, is take bits and pieces, maybe 90 seconds here, maybe 3 minutes there. Take it when you're really driving home your point or really driving home your bottom line. Take those and pull them out and upload those to your social media platforms as individual videos that focus on one singular point. Because there are going to be people who maybe missed the sermon or who just like you as a communicator. They're going to go to your website and download the sermon and watch it. That's awesome. But if it's 35, 40 minutes, there's just not that many people who are going to be able to benefit from that. But if you're putting out 90 seconds, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, those are shareable pieces of your sermon that can really reach a broad audience, and that's really exciting. We're going to start out by blogging our message one point at a time. I think that's really, really helpful, because when you do that, you just kind of put it in written form and you send it out to the people who are going to read it. You're going to use brief quotes and verses as social media messages, so that's really powerful. And then you're going to use the video and share it far and wide. We're going to go through the next 3 in the next video, so definitely stick around for that. That'll come out next week. But for now, definitely just this Sunday, think about which one of these could you do, and if you're already doing one of these, what other thing could you do? Like if you're already putting out video, could you pull some of the video out and share smaller bits of it? Could you share more quotes or verses that come from your message? Could you start blogging if you haven't done that yet? I would love to hear from you in the comments. What is the next thing that you're going to do? This article will be linked in the description if you want to check it out and read all 6, but I'll get the next 3 in the next video, and I will see you there.